Hey everybody, welcome to Home Groups, where we apply the message we heard this weekend at FV Church. This weekend, Candace had the third week in our Never Just Another Sunday sermon series, focusing on the heart for God's house, where David actually wanted to build God a house. But before he even started it, he went to his spiritual leader, a man who actually rebuked him for his sin earlier in his life, and he told him his plan, and that man was like, God says no. So this person who's rebuked him and corrected him before says no, and we really studied how David responded to that no.
We see that David didn't rationalize and say, well, that's just his problem, I'm fine. He actually took correction well from not just his spiritual leader, but from God himself, and changed his behavior. He genuinely repented. A lot of us think we genuinely repent, but in reality, we just rationalize and continue doing whatever we were doing before.
So let's look at that. Last week, we talked about turning over the tables in our lives and repenting of sin and staying away from it. Have we done that? Let's take some time in our groups and evaluate. Have you made progress or given over to Jesus the things that you said you would? Because David probably had to do that before going to Nathaniel saying, this guy called me out for my sin. Am I in the right? And so think about that. Have you repented? And then think about, what is God talking to you about? What is he telling you? And then also acknowledge, David, he wanted to build God a house because he was grateful for what God had already given him.
Yeah, so in this case, it wasn't sin. He had a good heart behind what he wanted to do, but God still said, no, you're not the guy for the job. And instead, he found what was in his hand to do, which was be super grateful for everything that God had given him, even all of the jobs that God had given him that were difficult and rough to go through. He was grateful for those. And he said, well, okay, you're not gonna let me build you a house, that's fine, but here's what I can do. Instead, I wanna support the people who can do what I want to do in the long run.
David focused on what he could do. He focused on what he was grateful for. He didn't focus on well, Nathaniel yelled at me and he won't let me do what I want. I'm just gonna go do my own thing. He said, I'm so grateful to God. So I think acknowledging our motivations is big. When we talked last week about flipping the tables, there might have been a motivation of conviction. And that can be a good motivation, but it shouldn't be our only motivation. We should also be motivated out of gratitude. So this week, let's talk about the decisions we made last week. Let's talk about how we respond maybe when God says no in our lives. And let's look at the things we're grateful for so that they can become motivations to do what God has us to do.
Yeah, have a great discussion, guys.
We'll see you next week.
She told me to start coming to church with her, so I would come from time to time. I got some services that I felt like, Jerry, you're the